All right, let's just jump right into this one. Forget Mars, forget the moon for a second. Today we're asking one of the biggest what-ifs you can imagine. What if we tried to live on a gas giant? We're talking about Saturn, that gorgeous, ringed jewel of our solar system. It's beautiful, no doubt, but it is an unbelievably hostile world. So, how in the world could we ever pull it off?
I mean, this is the big mind-bending question, right? When you think about colonizing a planet, you picture, well, ground. Something solid to build on. But Saturn, it doesn't have that. It's just this colossal ball of gas and liquid. So first, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale of the challenge we're talking about here.
First up, the temperature. The average temperature at the cloud tops, the only place we could even think about living, is a bone-chilling minus 140 degrees Celsius. That's minus 220 Fahrenheit. It's just staggeringly, unbelievably cold. Colder than anywhere ever on Earth.
Then you've got the weather. The winds on Saturn are some of the fastest in the entire solar system. We're talking speeds over 1,000 miles per hour. That's literally faster than the speed of sound here on Earth. Just try to imagine building anything inside a planet-wide hurricane that never, ever stops.
And if that wasn't enough, there's the atmosphere itself. As you go deeper into Saturn, the pressure gets so immense, it would instantly crush any spacecraft we have today like a soda can. So you've got the extreme cold, you've got hypersonic winds, and you've got crushing pressure, all on a planet with absolutely nowhere to stand. It sounds completely impossible, doesn't it?
So yeah, that's our starting point. Saturn as the impossible frontier. And really understanding these conditions is the key to appreciating just how incredible the solutions would have to be to even dream of living there.
And this, right here, really lays it all out. On Earth, we just take it for granted, you know? Solid ground, air we can breathe, plenty of sunlight. On Saturn, you'd have none of that. No surface, an atmosphere of hydrogen and helium, and it only gets about 1% of the sunlight that we get. The big takeaway here is you can't just move to Saturn. You'd have to bring your entire world with you.
Which, believe it or not, brings us to our first set of solutions. Because if you can't live on the planet, well, maybe you can live in it. Let's talk about how we could actually build a home right there in the clouds.
So, the first, most obvious problem you have to solve is the total lack of solid ground. You can't land a ship, you can't pour a foundation, you can't even stand up. So how do you solve the most basic problem there is?
Well, the answer sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. You build floating cities. The whole idea is to create these massive, buoyant habitats that would just hover in this perfect little sweet spot in Saturn's upper atmosphere. At that specific altitude, the pressure outside is about 1 bar, which is almost identical to sea level right here on Earth. We'd literally be creating our own islands in the sky.
But, okay, just floating there isn't quite enough. If you live in low gravity for too long, your body starts to fall apart. You get muscle atrophy, bone loss, it's bad. So these habitats would need to make their own gravity. And you do that by having parts of the city constantly rotating. That spinning motion creates a centrifugal force that would feel just like Earth's gravity, keeping everyone healthy for generations to come.
Okay, so now we have a place to live. That's huge. But how do you actually survive, day to day, when you're totally cut off from Earth? This is where the next piece of the puzzle comes in, and it's brilliant. You have to create a totally self-sustaining cycle of survival.
And the process is actually pretty elegant. The very atmosphere we're floating in becomes our #1 resource. So step 1, you just scoop up the atmospheric gases. Step 2, you filter out a special isotope, helium-3, which happens to be the perfect fuel for clean fusion reactors. Step 3, you use all that limitless fusion energy to split the tiny amounts of water vapor in the air into oxygen and hydrogen. And the result? A perfect closed loop that gives you a constant supply of pretty much everything you need to live.
So let's break that down. Your power, that comes from fusion, and it's fueled by the atmosphere itself. Your oxygen, that comes from splitting water vapor that's also in the atmosphere. That just leaves one last critical piece of the puzzle, food. And this is where it gets even more clever. With only 1% of Earth's sunlight reaching you, forget traditional farming. Instead, you'd use things like advanced hydroponics and aeroponics, basically growing plants without any soil, all powered by those amazing fusion reactors. And to deal with the constant dim light, you could even genetically engineer crops to thrive in the perpetual twilight of Saturn's clouds.
So, we figured out how to live, how to breathe, and how to eat inside our floating cities. Pretty good, right? But what about that raging, violent planet that's just outside the window? This brings us to the next massive challenge. actually taming the gas giant itself.
Yeah, let's not forget where we are. We're talking intense radiation, hypersonic winds, and massive lightning storms. This isn't just a backdrop. It is a constant active threat that our technology would have to fight against every single second of every single day.
To survive out here, you wouldn't just need a habitat, you'd need a fortress. We're talking about powerful magnetic field generators creating a mini magnetosphere to shield the city from deadly radiation. The halls themselves would have to be made from materials we can only dream of today, strong enough to handle those 1,000-mile-per-hour winds. And maybe most importantly, you'd have an autonomous AI acting as the pilot, constantly predicting the weather and steering the city through the calmest parts of the atmosphere.
And all of these systems would have to work together perfectly to create a real, functioning civilization. The AI wouldn't just protect us, it would manage the whole ecosystem. You could build incredible things like orbital elevators stretching all the way up to Saturn's rings to mine them for water ice. And you'd have swarms of drones acting as your eyes and hands, zipping between habitats for transport and scouting.
So we've covered the tech, the habitats, the survival systems, a lot of engineering. But this last part gets into what might be the most profound question of all. To truly live on a world like Saturn, is technology enough? Or would we have to change?
And this is the ultimate leap, isn't it? We have spent all this time talking about engineering our environment so that it can suit us. But what if the final step was to actually engineer us to suit the environment?
Just imagine a future type of human, a Saturnian. Maybe they're genetically engineered to be resilient to the cold and the radiation. Maybe they have cybernetic enhancements, or even reinforced skin to handle the pressure changes. Think about internal pressure regulators that would let them go deep into the atmosphere without a big, bulky suit. It is a totally fascinating and, yeah, a slightly terrifying thought.
And that's really the question I want to leave you with. Building cities in the clouds of Saturn would be an absolutely incredible feat of engineering. But the real final frontier might not be the planet itself. It might be our own biology. To conquer new worlds, would we actually be willing to reinvent what it even means to be human? It's a choice our descendants might seriously have to make one day.